Unfortunately, I think these people perhaps have not studied history. The reason that Dr. Martin Luther King was so effective is because he quelled the temptation toward violence and in fact brought a lot of attention to the injustices that were being done. If in case an injustice has been done in this case, and we don't know the answer to that, we've got to let the process take place, but if it has, by rioting, by hurting people who have nothing to do with the incident, the people engaged in that are actually detracting from the actual injustice that was done. So they're not helping this family.
All right, folks, Ben Carson with that analysis on the rioting that has taken place in Ferguson, Missouri in the wake of the shooting death of Michael Brown. Joining us now to talk about this on the Malzberg panel is radio host and author of The Big Black Lie, Kevin Jackson, and columnist and contributing editor for TheRoot.com, David Swerdlick. And let me start with you, David. Agree with what Ben Carson said?
Well, no, not really. Look, all due respect to Dr. Carson, Steve, you know, and all due respect to the fact that this is still an ongoing investigation where there are two sides of the story, you know, if accounts are true of what witnesses are saying, that this kid was shot by a police officer in Ferguson after he was already surrendering, then the appropriate response, I think, from the community is outrage. And although they should be peaceful and demonstrations should be, you know, nonviolent, I don't think Dr. Carson is right that the response is detracting from the situation. This is a trend.
Wait. But on one hand, you're saying it should be peaceful and nonviolent, and he's addressing the non-peaceful, violent reaction, and you're disagreeing with them? I don't see how.
No, let me be very specific. We know there are some specific, very isolated reports of people throwing rocks at police. There's another report.
Excuse me, they were carrying liquor out of liquor stores. Did you not see it? They burned down gas stations and other stores. Isolated reports? Let's go to with all due respect, David, let me go to Kevin. Kevin?
Yeah, well, I don't need to start off with all due respect. Ben Carson nailed it. And the problem on the left is they don't want to give any credit to somebody that doesn't have enough cred on the other side. He said exactly what any smart person would say, which is, until we know all the details, you wait and you find out. But regardless of the details, you don't go looting, you don't go destroying property, you don't go doing the things that these people are doing. I live here. I know exactly what's going on here. There's an additional 5 people that have been shot since this happens. I would love for the left to defend that. What does that have to do with this, you know, whatever the circumstances are? And what we do know is it is a tragedy. But whether the cop is at fault or the kid is at fault or it's a combination of both, the community, the black community, should not be doing this, period. And that's what this guy should say. But the left just can't bring this.
Let David. Kevin, David has a name. Let David respond. Go ahead, David.
Steve, look, I think you're slightly mischaracterizing what I was saying in response to the Dr. Carson clip.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Look, I am not, and I don't think anybody should or would condone looting or throwing rocks at police or you know, brandishing weapons at police in response to this. The majority of the protests and demonstrations in response to the Michael Brown killing have been peaceful demonstrations. It's peaceful to go out in the street and exercise one's right to freedom of assembly, to demonstrate against a trend and an incident in this case of police violence against young black men, against black people in general. So if Dr. Carson is only talking about, you know, violent acts, then so be it. But if he's talking about people standing down and just being calm in the face of this essentially trend of violence toward young black men, then I don't think he has it quite right.
Well, look, let's talk about the trend.
No, he can't be talking about that. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, let's talk about the trend.
David. I mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, thanks for telling me David's name. So, David, you can't be talking about a trend. There isn't a trend. The police have millions of interactions with black people every single day. And in fact, in that area of Missouri, which the town is approximately 65% black, the police force numbers 48 of the 51 police officers are white. So if you just look at those numbers, why isn't that town locked up? Why isn't everybody in that town dead? The police have lots of interactions with black folks every day. Some of them, unfortunately, because of the, quote, black neighborhood, tend to be violent. So if you want to look at a trend, look at the trend of the disproportionate amount of crime that happens in black communities on black people. And instead of riding against the police, how about we ride against ourselves for a little bit when you look at the crime statistics in Chicago or any major city? This is ridiculous.
All right, and Dave, Kevin, to that end, David, to that end, and I want you to answer, I have in my hand 70 homicides in St. Louis, most of them black youngsters, or black young adults or kids who were killed. Where's the outrage about that? Cops didn't do these murders.
Three things in response to what Kevin is saying, Steve. One is that the peaceful protest, going into the street and demonstrating, minus any violence, is an acceptable form of reaction to people's frustrations in this situation. Second of all, with response to the idea of black on black crime, look, both when you're talking about black people, white people, and other people, crimes are more often committed against people who live in the same neighborhoods as, and who look like both the perpetrator and the victim typically look like each other. So in a black neighborhood, you would expect black crime to be committed against black people, black criminals to be committing crimes against black people. And to Kevin's point about the outrage, there is outrage in every city, in every community in America where this problem exists. There are community organizations and there are leaders doing work trying to combat criminal violence against people who live in those neighborhoods, and civil rights leaders who are trying to address this problem. Just because it doesn't make headlines in the way this case does or police violence doesn't mean that people aren't doing the work and expressing outrage against these things.
All right.
As far as the Ferguson police, those are not the statistics that I've heard about the racial makeup of the Ferguson police, but I will defer until it can be checked.
Well, he said there it's 48 out of 51 white. Anyway, gentlemen, to be continued. Thank you both, Kevin Jackson and David Swerdlick. Thank you very much. Appreciate you both being on the panel. And we'll be back with more of the Steve Malzberg Show after the break. But first, I want you to stay tuned for your Newsmax Now update. And if you want to reach us on social media, please weigh in, comment on the show. Here's how.